There it is. Steve, Michael, really excited to talk to you guys about today's topic a little bit more, capturing experience before it exit. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. You didn't have to talk me into this one. This is one of my favorite topics.
Yeah, it's one of those, like we were talking before we hit record, capturing experience before it exits. It's a big topic. Like this hits everybody within the alliance and then some. So I'm excited to go a little bit deeper here. First question for you guys is actually a request. Like, just share a story if you could, real world story, real world experience that really exemplifies the importance of capturing that experience. Steve, would you share first?
Sure, I can do that. There's probably a number of them that you could pick from. So some years back, we had a long tenured associate that worked on these machines, and I mean, like 40 years of experience. When it came time for him to retire, I was like, let's take 3 months and let's have him just work with the teams for 3 months to try to capture some of that experience. Needless to say, that didn't work. That did not go so well. It was great to work with him, but as far as capturing the knowledge and documentation or process, it just didn't happen. You know, if you could go back years and you could create that documentation, I think that transition would be a lot more seamless.
So just more time, like 3 months, 90 days, it's just not going to cut it.
It's not enough, and you need a plan. If you're going to do that, you got to have a plan to capture. So what are you going to capture? What's the topic? What's a specific example that you need to understand or better know?
Yeah. Michael, I'm sure you got a story or two. Can you share one?
Yeah, one quick one. We had a situation where we had a real senior experienced person, lots of knowledge, and we'd work with them on creating a standard, all in a conference room. And then we said, hey, let's go see. And well, coincidentally, the next morning we were doing this changeover with some, younger and experienced, maybe even employee in training. And so we took that ragtag, rough draft standard work from the mind of the expert. We brought it out to the floor and watched the action. And it was almost like directing a movie. The expert was there saying, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that." The younger guys were trying to respond to all that, and we were capturing that all real time. As an addition to the initial standard work. So at the end of that changeover, all of a sudden we combined the enthusiasms of the new people and the questions of the new people with the experience of the older person that had been there years, and we made a better standard in one shot. And it was just fantastic. And we promoted it across the organization. Hey, look at this! Isn't this cool? We went from no standard to improved standard in 24 hours.
Nice, I love that.
Really, really fun. Okay,
so you mentioned senior operators in your presentation. You've talked to a lot. When I've talked to some, they've said, well, hey, this is what I'm feeling right now, or this is what I'm hearing right now. And, their standards are kind of based on like a feeling or a sound. In some cases, even I've seen like random tick marks on a machine, and I'm like, how are we going to translate that to standard work? And so when you got feelings, how do you translate that to standard work?
Yeah, and it's I don't know if I would use the word feelings, but I have a guy that I would call it like a spidey sense. Like he would hear a noise or hear a fan, and the hair on the back of his neck would go up, and he'd say, "I better call maintenance." I'm like, I didn't even hear it. Okay, so what's going on? The way to capture that, though, is honestly to walk the process and tap into that spidey sense as you're walking around and saying, what do you hear? What do you see? How do you know? Mm-hmm. Let's go get some data. Let's go find that fan and find out why it's making a different noise, and let's diagnose it right now and document that. It's also an interesting opportunity to go from what is the standard to what is troubleshooting mode. Mm. So if you hear that noise and it's not standard, what's your first course of action? Is it to call for help? Is it to turn the power off? Is it going to be a safety issue? And again, it's about that conversation. How do you bottle that and go through a day in the life of that person? As if you weren't there.
Right.
What would you do if I wasn't here? Show me.
Right. Steve, how have you approached this one?
Feelings on our side, we really stick to standards and specifics as we're going through. We try to outline the process in a fashion that allows you to complete the process without really getting into feelings. Your example there, the machine makes a different noise. First thing came to my mind is a CNC machine's running, it breaks a tap. It's like, okay, what happens? Or you blow an insert. It's like, oh, okay, how do you know what's going on without waiting for the cycle to complete and seeing that, oh, my inserts were bad, now I need to recut this. So from our standpoint, it's typically stick to the specifics and the standards that we need in the process.
So if someone on your team has got a black book, whether it's feelings or they hear something specific, or they see the black book of tribal knowledge, and you want to try to capture it and then share it, how do you make sure that they just don't feel threatened? Because I think that black book makes them go, well, hey, I'm needed here. I'm the one with the black book.
Yeah.
How do you make it safe?
I think you have to come across as this is going to empower everybody. It's going to make the business better. It's going to make the team succeed or help the team succeed in what we're doing. When you get into those thoughts, do you want to be the owner of that black book? Do you want a day off? Do you want vacation? If you're going to control everything that's going on, that makes that extremely difficult. So you want to share that knowledge and help others grow along the way.
Yeah.
In addition to sharing that knowledge, it opens the door for you to learn more tasks or broaden your experience as well, right?
That's good.
You're letting somebody else learn, and now they can take over that task, and now you can go learn something else.
Any other incentives for that person to let go of the black book that you can think of?
It's tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael, any other thoughts on what could we do to incentivize someone to let go of the black book? You mentioned a few. Anything you could add to it?
Yeah. Well, I think at the root of the problem here, I think people are worried about job stability and being eliminated or not being valued as much. So I think a big conversation has to happen around what's going to happen after this knowledge is shared. Do you get a promotion? Do you get a bump? Do you get a raise? Do you get more responsibility? Do you have some more relaxing time off? Whatever their incentive might be. But the main thing is, we need you. You're not going to get laid off after you share your knowledge. That's not how we roll here. And incentives aside, how about just stability? We value you. I hate to use the phrase, buttering them up, but repeatedly saying, you're the expert. This is amazing. You got to show me how this works. How did you learn this? How could you help the next generation learn this twice as fast? And not everybody's going to want to do that, right? Not everybody wants to document and sit in a room and expert, and so they might get a little uncomfortable. And some are going to grab that iPad out of your hand and they're going to say, well, I can take better pictures than you. And they're going to come back an hour later with the whole process documented.
Yeah, that's good.
True story. 35-year veteran, never done a CI project, actually came back with a bunch of photos for lockout tagout for us.
Yeah.
And all we had to do was give him the tool and leave him alone for a little while.
Yeah,
and then he felt valued. He wasn't threatened anymore.
So what do you do then back to the black book? And in the black book, there's actually 5 different ways and 5 different people. So you're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what I thought it would be. This is a bunch of variation. How do you attack the variation to bring it into standardization?
Yeah, well, there's the quote I always use to inspire people when we sit down to create standard work is author Jamie Flinchbaugh, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to Lean and many other great books. Fantastic guy. And his definition of standard work, it's high agreement on the what and the how. And so I start, the brainstorming with that, saying at the end of the day, we're going to agree on how we work. This is a pact between us. We're going to agree to follow the standard. Is everybody on board? And we're going to find the most repeatable way. We're going to document it. We're going to test it. We're going to run that experiment. But at the end of the day, we're going to agree to work the same way. Is everybody on board with that? And you'll get some funny looks like, hey, I kind of like my way, or second shift never does it the same way. And use Jamie's quote to reel that in. That's my best little trick. Is that quote has stuck with me all these years.
That's good, but I want to go deeper. Steve, how do you bring people together?
you have in our circumstances, we do it in a team setting, and let's talk about the process. And as Michael stated, everybody has a different way of doing it, and everybody's way is best. So how do you weigh that out, and how do you dig down to the bottom of that? So what we've done through the years is we want to focus on safety, quality, and efficiency. So we can have those discussions, okay, what's the safest way, and what gets the end result where it needs to be, and now let's talk about what's efficient and how do we get it efficient. And everybody needs to agree upon that, and then the process will be created.
Who breaks a tie?
Who breaks the talk?
Tie. So if there's, let's say you got 4 people on the team, 2 say this is the safest way, the other 2 say this is the safest way.
The leader has to be the director of what happens there. So the leader has to own that process so he can keep the team in line as we're going. Everybody wants their process to be the best and the most efficient, but reality, you have to give up the fact or lose the self-awareness or the self-esteem that mine is best, and let's I understand, I'll go with that process and work it through. I can see the
I love the
benefits.
idea of a moderator and a tiebreaker, but I also like if you can get the data, run it both ways side by side and let the data speak. When that doesn't work, then you still need the tiebreaker guy. You need that leader, that moderator, with the unbiased opinion to step in.
So we talked about the black book, talked about who's going to break a tie, priorities, and then you went one level deeper into let's go get some data. As soon as we go there with a team, they're immediately going to come back at us and be like, you got the time for all this? And so how do you guys find the time, make the time to get the data, look at the black book, go through all the details, high level, and then some? How do you make time for this?
For creating processes is a challenge. One of our key methods is if we develop a new product, that's part of our manufacturing plan. So have all the tasks that we do for manufacturing, and we break it down to each team. So you think about welding, machining, assembly, fabrication, electrical. Everybody's got a task list of things that they do. Creating those processes are one of them. So we line item out, start with the largest items first. And as that machine is built or those components are built, the task of the team is to video or take pictures of that process along the way and then come back and identify the tasks as we go.
It's like the standard work helps build the standard work in your system.
Right.
Like, that's kind of what I'm hearing
It's
you
the
say.
manufacturing
Like
plan.
you baked it into the process.
Yeah, correct.
I like
Correct.
that a lot.
Correct. It works well. It takes time to get through that. That's I think the key element. If you're building a new product, your first process may not be the best one going through, so you have to revise and you have to allow the team time to create those pictures and create that document to get it good. So we'll usually go about 6 components, and we want to have a pretty robust process by that time. Another key element there is bringing both shifts together to work on the project. If you have a new product and you only have one shift working on it, now you've just limited yourself from production. That other shift or the other 2 shifts, how do they learn that?
Well, Michael, what would you add to the time equation? Got to make time for this stuff.
Yeah, well, that is the bottleneck for sure. Creating the standard, improving the standard. If your system is that heavily burdened with effort, you're gonna just have to apply resources. I would argue a couple things. I think, Steve, you were alluding to this, is if you go upstream, you order some equipment, can you write the standard work for that equipment as it's being built with the vendor, so that when the equipment is delivered, you at least have Rev 1 of the standard work. So you're not creating it in chaos as you're trying to run it. There's a baseline. I'm not talking about the manual. I'm actually talking about standard work, like real standard work. Now, that still means you have to have a team fly out to the vendor and work with them. They're not going to deliver that to your fingertips. But back to my earlier phrase about modernization, I think what's happened in the last 10 years especially is the digital tools and the way we work, the methodologies have evolved to minimize some of that burden. It's, you remember the book, I think it was Mr. Crosby that wrote the book Quality is Free. It's a lie. Quality is not free. Standard work is not free.
That's right.
Is it cheaper than it was 10 years ago? I think it is. I think we can use digital, modern methods, some of the tools, everything from microphones to cameras to mobile devices to sensors to speed it along. But it's still a painful process, and it still requires resources. And as manufacturers, we have to find those resources. We have to, maybe it's a part-time, maybe it's a full-time, maybe it's a 1-year assignment, and then somebody gets pulled back into their normal role. But it is not free. It is not. It doesn't just happen because you have a digital tool.
Right.
It still requires a fair amount of effort, and we have to realize that.
Yeah. So in terms of like making sure that once you have the standard, you've made the time, you've started to pull stuff out of the black book, you got the team coming together, then what do you do to make sure that it remains up to date? Like both of you have talked to me about that unfortunately classic binder that's 30 pages and it sits up on the top of the shelf or the lockers and just collects dust. I've unfortunately heard that more times than I care to over the years. Now, how do you make sure we pull it off, keep it updated? Like, are we using digital tools or what are we doing?
Digital tools probably lend best for that. I think having an insight of how you want to create that process. So at Park Industries, we try not to put the machine specifics in the process. And here's why. We want to outline the process and how we do things, but we don't want to put the specs from the print on, because if there's revisions to the print, now there's revisions to the process. Now the process is different than a final checklist. A final checklist is going to have all of your specifics called out and your operating parameters. Now when there's a revision come, you update that final check. But on the process, we try to stay a little bit high level and not get down and tell people what to exactly apply to that fastener or what torque you want to put on that bolt. We want to refer back to the print for those specific instructions.
Yeah, it's good. Michael, you get the last word on this one.
Yeah, well, I want to just add to what you said. We ran into that issue. Too much information getting into our standard work that was product specific, and our filter was manufacturing needs to know how to do it, and quality likes to tell you what to do. So we had the what and the how, and the how was more of the settings and the general, still following that standard work format. And the what was what setting, what spec, what dimension, what quality test, whatever. And as soon as we partitioned those and got those two teams working independently on their part, it was a much more of a harmonious situation. So that, so arguments now are off the table. That's great. Yeah. Now let's get after it. Let's sustain it. Our best trick for that is a thing called LPA. So it's not a gimbal walk. It's not an audit. It's not an ISO thing. It's layered process audits. So once there's a standard created, you go out in pairs because nobody audits alone. It's lonely and lean enough. So let's go do pairwise examination of a standard. P is for process, meaning a process standard work, and the audit is simply watching the work, using a checklist, observing, reinforcing. So that only works if you have a standard, if the standard is accessible in the work cell, if both parties can review the standard, and you can have this intelligent conversation about, are we following it or are we not? Is it working? Is it not? And immediately feeding your CI system to say, if it's not working, we need to fix it by tomorrow morning. And that sense of urgency. And if you don't have that thing happening, that LPA and that rapid CI, you're going to get bogged down, you're going to get behind, and then 12 years are going to go by and you're going to say, oh, nobody's looked at the standard or updated the standard. Right. What did we just do here? And now you've just recreated the problem all over again. So that's my last word is LPA. Yep. And some discipline around accelerating those improvements, getting them in place. As we were scaling up, lines not so many years ago, we started measuring ideas to improvement day by day, and we found out it would track this for about 180 days. We found out we made 200 improvements in 180 days, and 80% of the improvements were implemented and trained in and documented by the next morning. and only 20% are required to engineering or specialists or a project or whatever. But we created this little incubator, special manufacturing thing where the culture was, let's follow the standard and let's improve the standard every day.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't a problem. Now, where are they today? I don't have my eye on the ball. I can't say they're making 200 improvements a quarter today, but maybe they are.
Yeah. Well, that's great momentum, and like that's a lot of quick wins, which I think is the great win to end the Q&A on. So
It is.
thank you guys both for going a little bit deeper here on today's topic with capturing experience before it exits. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirby.
Thank you, Kirby.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Hey, thank you so much for joining us at our webinar today on capturing experience before it exits. If you liked this Q&A and you want to go even deeper, check out our continuous improvement series of digital courses. It'll walk you through step by step on how to develop standard work, step by step on how to learn to see waste. You name it, there's a number of digital courses that are included in that series that'll help you with today's topic, go a little bit deeper. And it's all included in your company membership at no additional cost. Just fill out that form below and we'll send you more information. Thanks for watching. How about that for a close? That's pretty good.
That's good.
It's good thing Debbie says something.